Hello, welcome to FrieNDA,
the podcast where two interesting game people
talk to other super interesting game people
about super interesting game things.
I'm your host, Mike Stout.
And I'm your other host, Annie Vandermeer.
So let's get started.
Yay!
Yeah! I'm getting better at line readings every time, I think.
Yeah, I mean, having to put structure on this thing and walk the tightrope of like just enough professionalism so that we don't seem hacky, but not enough, just enough lack of structure so people feel free about things. I've looked at some past ones and I'm like, we talked about what was happening in the world of games. And now it's just like, well, the game news is shit's bad.
Yeah.
I don't want to remember this particular period of time in games because it sucks ass. It's really sad. Everybody's depressed about it.
Yeah. So maybe we'll skip talking about that.
Yeah.
And maybe by the time this comes out, everything will be magically better. I doubt it.
Yeah. If we could just be like, oh, look at that artifact of the past. Boy, we were having a time.
It feels like the industry is going to be like one of those trees where you cut it off and you see the rings and you can tell where there's a fire because there's this shitty fucked up ring.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like this year and all the layoffs are going to be one of those fire rings on the industry. Like it's going to change things,
yeah,
and not necessarily for the better. But, you know, we will get more rings. But yeah, it's brutal.
Yeah.
So let's talk about happy stuff then.
Yeah. So what have you been playing lately?
Baldur's Gate 3. All these months later, I am still playing I have put more than 400 hours into Baldur's Gate 3.
Oh my god, this is my shocked face.
I like going deep on stuff recently rather than broad. I've played enough video games now that a lot of the times it's like, well, okay, I kind of get the point of that. Maybe I'll skip it, you know? And I just end up playing like the really good ones.
Yeah.
But every so often, something hits me in a certain way and I have to go real deep on it. Like One Punch Man or The Good Place. If you ever want to do a storytelling thing on One Punch Man, I have some talks prepared.
Baldur's Gate 3 is like predicted in the last one where we were talking about it, like, not until next season. I was like, probably next year because it is so huge. And the amount of people I know who have just straight started over, well, myself included.
And me.
I want to know, honestly, the amount of people that have started over for the reason that I did, which is a little embarrassing, which is just, I want to do romances and I don't like how my character looks.
Fair. So, new playthrough.
It's weird. I got barely into Act 2, as farthest I've gotten, and I was not even really sure about that. And I looked up something else and was like, well, I missed all this other shit right here. Like, there's stuff that's so missable, and as a designer, I'm like, no, that should be the case. That should be, you feel rewarded if you find something new. And as a player, I'm like, oh fuck, I can't miss anything. I need to just get all the juice out. Before I went back to Baldur's Gate, because I took a break for a while, you had mentioned last time that you beat Tears of the Kingdom, and I got super sucked in.
Yeah.
And I had that whole thing about like, man, I can't beat Lionel's. I played Tears so much, I had Lionel's on fucking farm.
Yes, that's how you do it.
But still, like, I did the maths on stuff because I was like, I want to upgrade everything to the maximum because that is how determined I was to just, you know, get all the juice out. I did all the shrines. We're going to get this out of the way. Not going to get the Korok stuff done. I'm just like, oh, hi, whatever. I'm not going to play their game. Although it was kind of nice. I'd flag whenever they appeared, you know, like, help me get to my friend because it helped me do something interesting.
Yeah.
But I didn't like the idea of just hunting through the landscape to find their shit. And actually in my head, Link was like, oh my god, like frustrated whenever it's a fucking Korok. Like, yeah, whatever. You know, you really needed me to remove the rock there. And could you maybe help out with the giant evil that's like
Nah.
covering the world. No, you just want me to fucking put rocks on stuff. All right. Yay.
It's like, why are you having me move rocks around? Don't you know I need to upgrade my clothes?
This is so important. I need better boots, man, and I need to catch a bunch of dragonflies to get them somehow.
Yeah, so that I can attach them to an arrow to shoot a thing, and that I didn't know was super OP.
Yeah. And I had Lionels on farm, but it got to the point where I was looking at what I needed to kill, and I'm like, okay, I need Lionel guts for this. And those are occasional drop. And I know that I need like hooves for this other thing. And I need 9 of them. And I know where 4 Lionel spawn. And I have to wait until the blood moon.
So you farmed them?
I reached a point where I was like, you know what? I think this is where I need to step away. Like, I managed to upgrade the barbarian armor to the max.
Yeah.
And that shit's all Lionel all the way down.
Did you beat the critical path? Like beat the story?
Yes.
Okay.
It's weird that there's shit that works in one game that doesn't work in the other. And I think that it's part of them embracing their, like, cheating stuff is fun. Like, when I found out that if you do an opposite, like, Kisai and use the bow on them, you can just knock those fuckers out of the sky. And a lot of times the fall damage will kill them, which is just ludicrous. To just, like, roll up on this 3-headed dragon and be like, and it just screams, and then the music changes, like, oh my gosh, you did it, and then buff, and like half his health is gone. I'm just like, this must be so embarrassing for you.
Or you just happen to have a laser or a gun or whatever, right?
Yeah. And you have, basically, with the sages, you have NPCs just wandering around you all the time, and it's poorly implemented. They are not well implemented, but it's still fun.
However, I have to say, like, having worked on games with followers, their followers are better than most.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
oh yeah.
They followed me. They didn't ever really screw me over beyond a few times when one of them got in my way.
Mm-hmm.
But even then I could shoot through them because they weren't real.
Yeah.
So it was like they managed to come up with every trick and conceit in the design and conception of the characters to make it so that they could, say, just disappear and reappear behind you so that they're not in your way. Or so, like, they did, I think, as good of a job as they could with things that needed to follow you everywhere all the time.
Yeah.
That shit is so hard.
That is really difficult. The problem I had, I think, was one more with UI. Like, why can't you just give me a radial menu? So when I'm pressing A for everything and trying to pick up stuff, and Tulin has decided to get all snuggly close, he doesn't just go woo and just blow all my shit away
Right.
that I was just picking up. So I feel like Link just slowly turns and glares at him, be like, "You don't even know. This is just a manifestation of you. I can't even fucking get mad."
There were definitely times I had to turn them off, like when I was trying to repair an item via an Octorok.
Yes.
Right? Like they would just murder it and be like,
yeah, no.
guys, I was doing a thing. Please don't do that. I forgot to turn them off.
There's so much farming in that game. You have to farm for so much shit.
I just never, ever sold anything.
How did...
So it'd be like, I'll just keep 50 of this thing just in case I need it. And then I just would only ever use the ones after 50 or something, you know?
Oh my God.
But I did have to farm still. But yeah, remember when we were talking about item degradation?
Yeah.
Like we were finding good things about it, but like, you know, it's something that especially we threw Zelda under the bus for.
Oh yeah.
The first one, not the first, you know what I mean? The other one.
Breath.
And how refreshingly different that was in Tears, simply because they added the fusing.
Yeah.
Like that changed everything. Like it was all of a sudden, oh yeah, I don't mind that this thing goes away because I've got a moblin skull that I can attach to this baseball bat and I'm ready to go. You know, I wouldn't have to go like find weapons or not want to use my really good ones. It's like, no, I got a bunch of these moblin skulls, right? We're good.
The only place I reliably saw shit like that, now that I'm thinking about it, is like zombie survival games like Dead Rising and Dying Light.
Mhm.
Like, boop, just put this together and now it's better and like it'll break. And yeah, we were talking about survival stuff being the acceptable setup. The thing that I thought was funny is that they actually thought to have a story conceit for why shit breaks.
Yeah.
I was like, well, this is not necessary. I don't think that's going to change anybody's fucking opinion on this mechanic. But that you thought about it is like, that's real nice. That's a sweet little thing that you did there.
Where did all the weapons go?
Yeah. Oh, they got fucked up when the depths just decided to put all this nasty, like, I gotta give it to them. The fucking visuals in that game, they made fuchsia fucking terrifying.
On a Switch too. Like, it was so beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's difficult.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert. When I found the underground area, I'm like, there's no possible way this is the same footprint as the upper area.
Yeah.
And it was. I'm like, they built another area as big as the overworld, and then they have the sky, and they seamlessly transition between them on a Switch, and it's like, blows my mind.
Like, the sky is like, okay, I can't offhand think of a game that does this, but like, it's really big, but it's still, islands. It's not a whole continent floating over another continent. And that's what the depths is. It's 1-to-1. I like how they did this paralleling of stuff.
Yeah.
To the point where I was like, I'm going to look at every mountain now and go down there and find the mine or the canyon thing that's inevitably there. Yeah, sometimes their analogs are just kind of ridiculous. Like the giant statue of the goddess that exists on the overworld. And if you go into the depths and see the huge bargainer statue there, when I saw that from a distance, I was like, holy fuck. Oh my god. Like, I was scared. Fear gripped me.
It was a scary area in the Underdark.
Yeah, basically that's it. I got to the point where I was just like, you know what? I don't like the dark. I don't like this. And I built my little janky ass hover bike that always pulled to the left and just
mine pulled to the right. Yeah.
Oh god, it's just, I think that's the thing. Like, that's your price for freedom in that game, is you can do whatever the fuck you want, but just really don't expect it to work exactly as you want it to.
There's no snapping.
Yeah.
I guess there's a little snapping, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, sometimes irritatingly to the exact thing that you don't want it to. It's just like, yeah, for this, your price for total freedom is jankiness. And like, that's everything. That's like every game where people are like, I just wish I had so much more freedom. And I'm like, well, do you want janky? Because that is how you get janky. Yeah, I think that the ultimate test of that is like, how fun is the shit that you make? As long as your fun is over your janky by a certain amount, you're good.
Your jank quotient must be at least 0.85.
Oh yes.
On the jankometer.
We need to make this a thing. We need to actually quantify this. Yeah. Aside from Baldur's Gate 3 and actually jumping back on Diablo 4, because they've got a new season and it's got fucking robots in it, which is like, okay.
Wow. I got to check that out.
I actually am like, oh yeah, it's online, and I have a bunch of friends who play it. I wonder what they're up to, because it is a lot easier and a lot less worrisome to run around with friends in Diablo 4 than to invite them into your game in Baldur's Gate and be like, you did what? You fucking killed that guy? He had like 7 quests associated with him. We're reloading a save. God damn it, I can't take you anywhere.
Can't trust you with anything.
Diablo 4 is like, fucking kill shit. It's not like, oh no, you shouldn't have killed that shit. That's never the case in Diablo 4.
Well, and they can help you pull more weight too, right? Like in Diablo 3, at least, it was just like, do you have someone who's in the end game? Give them an hour and they'll get you into the end game.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that was always really nice. You could just watch them be ultimately powerful and say, that's going to be me someday. And you say it like that because you sound like Dirty Harry. Let's see how old the people are who listen to us. Does anyone remember that movie?
Anybody?
That was in the late 20th century, Annie.
And I was thinking the game that I was playing now that I jumped over to was old. They just came out with a remake of the second Katamari Damacy.
Oh, yeah. I played the first one.
Oh, God, the second one is even better. The second one actually has the best conceit for a sequel out of any game I have ever played.
Really?
Yeah, like
Of all the games, it seems like Katamari would not be the one, because like most of it is just like, here's some crazy shit. Have fun.
yeah, and that's exactly why the sequel is is so great in that regard. Like there's the standard sequel stuff of it controls better and the camera's better and you can do some new stuff. But I'm going to say it's Keita Takahashi. This is the person behind it. Apparently the creator didn't want to make a sequel and Namco's like, "Look, we're going to fucking make a sequel. We're going to do it with or without you." And it's like, "All right, all right." And he made the conceit for the game that in that world, Katamari Damacy came out. And like the Katamari was a thing, and everybody loved it, and it was a big hit. And so now it is the fans of the game who have requests, and you as the prince are walking around talking to them, and then pop up into the sky where your dad, the giant king of the cosmos, just sort of hanging out. And he's like, "Nah, I don't know if I'll do this thing." And then, like, the voice of the person on Earth is like, "Your Majesty is so handsome." And he's like, "Handsome? Yeah, let's totally do this thing." The setup for that is the same on every single one. He doesn't want to do it, and then somebody compliments him, and then he's like, we're totally right. Yeah, let's do that." So everything is set up under that conceit of like a fan request, the fan flatters the king, and then he sends you off to do the thing.
Vaguely autobiographical game. I mean, like word for word, right? The fans wanted this, so we did it.
And the weird interstitial stuff, instead of like random family, the Hoshinos, it's now scenes into the past of the King of the Cosmos, where you learn that his dad was somehow an even bigger dick to him than he is to the prince. Like, oh my god, this dude is terrible. And in the remaster, or the remake, or whatever the appropriate term is now, they actually added new challenge levels where you play as the King of the Cosmos when he was little, when he was prince sized.
Oh, okay.
And they're fucking hard. I don't know how much I really like them, but in terms of thinking about it as like this is a challenge mode, yeah, they totally work. It does have the disadvantage of having that point where the difficulty suddenly spikes and everybody's talking shit on how sad your Katamari is. Like, I got it the size that you wanted. I barely did. And they're like, look how fucking tiny that thing is. Whatever, you can have it.
Like, we don't really want you to do the average. We just, we want you to have, at least 30 pieces of flair. But
yeah.
There's another movie reference from last century, by the way.
You're just like laying them down.
I'm laying them out. Okay, so the other day I made a 2 turntables and a microphone reference. And as soon as I finished it, I'm like, nobody in this whole meeting is going to know who Beck was. And I was right. They just looked at me weird. And I'm like, where it's at? No? All right. With the cocaine nose jobs? No?
If you guys don't get that, all my jokes about the girl with the short skirt and the long jacket are fucking doomed. Okay, all right, last chance. Sweater. That's something. It's unraveling. Fuck.
If you want to destroy it, just pull this thread. No? Yeah.
Wasn't that a song from Happy Days? I'm gonna just lie down on my face and die. I'm just going to crumble into dust like Thanos snapped me. Jesus Christ.
But yeah, I don't even know where I was going with that, but I'm sure wherever it was really fun.
Video game. Man, I wonder if we should even be like, what games are we looking forward to? Because I'm like, I have no idea what the fuck is coming out.
I'm still looking forward to games that came out last year that I haven't played yet, right? Because last year was so good. I mean, I haven't played Spider-Man 2 yet.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm looking forward to that so much, but I just can't stop playing Baldur's Gate.
Yeah.
But it's still going to get played. Spider-Man's still going to get played. It's just what won't in favor of Spider-Man is what we'll find out.
The thing that kills me is when I tell people games that I haven't played, they're like, there's no reason that you haven't played this game. You would love this game. And I'm like, I know. Like, I haven't played the first Spider-Man. Like, you love Marvel, you love Spider-Man. I'm like, I know I love all these things. It's very long and there's so much to do. And like this is why I have this insane backlog of shit in my Steam library. I backed Psychonauts 2. You know what the funny thing is? Not even it coming out was the like I should play this, is me finishing watching the documentary on it that's 7 hours long.
I think when it comes to Spider-Man, though, you can probably safely play Spider-Man 2 without worrying about having missed the other ones. Because you know Spider-Man. It's Spider-Man.
I know.
Like, you're not going to need to know that he got bit by a radioactive spider.
He what?
I'm sorry, spoilers. I mean, and to be fair, they actually skipped that in some game. Like, he was already Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I don't think there is anything that they bring up that they wouldn't, that they're just going to be like, oh, if you don't get this, you just should have played the first game, right? They're going to reintroduce everything.
Yeah. I saw somebody beat Spider-Man, but like I personally remember me talking about Pikmin and being like, I have to go through all of them.
Oh, yeah.
I was so hyped for 4, I skipped 3, and my brain's like, you shouldn't have done that.
How dare you?
You need to go back and beat 3 now. You need to complete the circle. Like, I'm mentioning playing We Love Katamari, Royal Rainbow, or Reroll, and they redid the first one too, and I had thought that I beat it. And when I was checking the trophies, just out of curiosity, I saw that I didn't have the trophy for rolling up the moon, which is the sort of end game thing in the first one, and I realized I hadn't beaten the first remake and felt this deep sense of shock and shame. I had gotten into the second one without beating the first one. Oh my god.
How dare you?
That is how my brain is wired. That is why I can't just be like, oh yeah, I'll just jump into the sequel. Like, no.
Did you finish Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 and all the expansions?
No,
or were you willing to mulligan that because it was long enough?
I'm gonna mulligan that one because I know your saga of going through it and like looking up the playtimes. That it's 120 hours. That's the amount of time I spend on something and try not to fucking tell people that I spent that long on it. Although my time in Tears of the Kingdom, and I'm gonna say that this is a little bit artificially inflated because of time being sick. I put over like 260 fucking hours into that game. So I feel like a fucking hypocrite when it's like, you don't have the time to take down an 8-hour game, Annie, to set you up properly and prime you to enjoy all these bits of the next one, to see the things that they had wanted to do and how they improved upon the formula. Like, what the fuck kind of designer are you, Annie?
Okay, so Assassin's Creed Brotherhood was like, when you go from like Assassin's Creed to the next one,
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like you needed to go backwards to see what they did with the combat system. You know what I mean? Like, they perfected it in Brotherhood. It was fine-ish in Assassin's Creed. And they also realized that what they wanted, what you should be doing more is running and jumping,
Mm-hmm.
and less of the fighting. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But my brain doesn't allow for that. I'm like,
yeah, fair.
Like, I don't know why I do this. I don't know why some things are okay and other things are not. There is some Rosetta Stone in my brain that's like, this is why you are the way you are. And I can't fucking find it. Welcome back to FrieNDA. Our guest this episode is one of the legends of games, Brenda Romero, an award-winning game director, entrepreneur, artist, and Fulbright Award recipient. As a game director, she has worked on 50 games and contributed to many seminal titles, including the Wizardry and Jagged Alliance series, and titles in the Ghost Recon, Dungeons & Dragons, and Def Jam franchises. Away from the Machine, her analog series of 6 games, The Mechanic is the Message, has drawn national and international acclaim, particularly Train and Siochán Leat, a game about her family's history, which is presently housed in the National Museum of Play. In addition to a BAFTA and a Fulbright, Romero is the recipient of multiple Lifetime Achievement Awards, a Grace Hopper Award, a GDC Ambassador Award, and many of the games she has contributed to have won numerous awards. Romero is CEO and co-founder of Romero Games based in Galway, Ireland. And yet, despite all that, she has kindly agreed to join us on our very silly show. So thank you so much for being here, Brenda.
Oh, thank you. I'll never live up to that to that intro. Let's just get that out of the way. It's true. There's times that like you do want to list all that. Like if you're pitching a game, you want to be able to say like, here's the background, and like it's great for an author bio or somebody's using it for marketing. But it will always be super awkward when somebody reads it and you're like, stop. Yeah. She made games for a long time and didn't change careers. Yay, Brenda Romero.
That's funny. That's how I feel too when people are saying nice things. It's just like, I just didn't stop.
Yeah.
If you just keep doing it long enough, it'll happen.
It only takes 20 years to have a 20-year career. It doesn't take that long.
When I got introduced to somebody I was going to be working with, they're like, oh, Annie, just won a BAFTA. I felt like I wanted to just melt and go out of my chair. Like, oh, he's saying something that you won. And I'm like, but I feel like I just got lucky and I was working on a project that was fun. And I realized the hypocrisy of like, yeah, so what? Making games are fun. Making games should be a great experience. And the whole like conceit of you need to suffer for your art is patent bullshit. So why did I feel like I was cheating somehow, that I was involved with a game that did well and I had fun working on it?
Yeah, exactly.
I had some confronting of myself to do.
Strong talk with myself.
It's like I won an award and a lot of baggage. Yeah. I'm going to step away from digging into that and jump into sort of our main mechanic of our podcast here, which is actually... And the conceit for that is there's a lot of mechanics in games and systems and whatnot that people claim to not like or, genuinely don't like. And yet, for as much as people talk crap on them, say they hate them, etc., these are things that keep popping back up. They seem to be sort of evergreen and sticking around. And so Justify the Mechanic has been, well, let's take a look at why these sort of things exist in a kind of like classic speech and debate way. Not in terms of format, but in terms of we're putting people to defend something they might actually really hate. And the process of doing that is hopefully gets us to learn a little bit more about the mechanic and ourselves.
For this episode, Annie has come up with it, and I don't know what it's going to be either.
Yeah.
So this should be fun.
So I'm very happy to launch into this episode's Justify the Mechanic is... Trash loot.
Trash loot.
Trash loot.
Okay, good. I'm happy, as long as it's not what I feared it was going to be, we can talk about anything.
Now I'm curious what you were afraid it was going to be, and I'm like, if it's, I should add that to my list of things if it's not there already.
Yeah, so the one that I was afraid it was going to be is...
Oh, that's a good one. We need to put that one on the list for later.
Oh my God, yeah, that's in the list.
It's probably my biggest debate. Okay, anyway, this has nothing to do with what we're... So we're talking about trash loot.
Yes.
All right, so, okay, where do we start?
So basically, I'll explain the mechanic a little bit. To those who are unfamiliar, you're running through a dungeon and clearing out enemies, and you're like looking through crates and boxes and are finding a wealth of spoons or plates or broken daggers, or you are out in the world taking down a bunch of critters and are getting like gallbladders and claws and whatnot, and they don't have any purpose or use. They're not secret ingredients in potions. They won't magically unlock a door. They're just kind of there.
And my first thought is quite obviously an incredibly selfish one.
That's all good.
Which is coming from the world of hardcore RPGs, especially like, the older RPGs. If I've got something, it's because I can use it. So I do remember when trash loot, maybe trash loot's been around a lot longer than I think it has. But for me, when I first started encountering trash loot, I'd be like, well, I've got to save it. Why would the game give it to me if I didn't have to do something with it? Also, I think it adds to the overall budget for a game. I know it adds to the overall budget for the game. Like, unless there's some place out there that I don't know of that's making gallbladders for free and distributing them to games. Like, so I think there's a real cost to it. And so, I guess, why do you think Trash Loot started? Like, what are the pros? I feel like I could have a whole argument with myself and you guys can just disconnect. But what do you, I'm curious to hear, like, why did you pick the topic? And what do you think?
We've never had a guest turn it back on us now, and I'm so I'm so excited. I know I should stop constantly laughing into the mic, and AJ will be like, you need to do so many better cakes. But seriously, we haven't had a guest turn stuff back, and I'm delighted because I've obviously been thinking about this topic a bunch because I want to make sure that anything that I pick as a topic is something that kind of stumps me. And I'm weird because I kind of like Trash Loot. I'm the crazy clutter goblin. If I have a character that can easily carry this shit, I will pick up a kitchen's worth of silverware and dump it on poor Karlach. It's not that I think it'll come in handy later for anything but get me money and clogging up some poor NPC's inventory who has been foolish enough to trade with me. But I think, actually, to bounce a sort of counter example in an area where everything is useful is Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, which I recently finished and I really love. But that game feels like it went out of its way to make every single thing that you can pick up has a use. And that, I examined my own behavior from that, and I'm like, I could see this being really overwhelming to most other people. It nearly is for me, but my survival mechanism in that is to just ignore like at least 80% of the crap that I pick up. Like, I don't know if I ever, except for one quest where they needed me to use like a wing on something because it makes it fly farther, and I'm like, well, if I can't aim it perfectly, what's the point? I feel like there's so much energy that has to go into making everything have a point that sometimes it's fun to just sort of have something fill out the world and just be there for something. In Horizon Zero Dawn, I like that there's a whole category of something that just straight up says in the item description, this item has no use except to sell to merchants.
Yeah, which is awesome, right? Like, at least it's like, I'm one of those people who will hold on to an item. It's funny because it sounds very much like you and I have different play styles, right? Like, I understand, okay, here's a bunch of trash that I've just, I don't know it's trash for starters, but I've killed something and now there's a bunch of stuff out in the world. If we just go to the gallbladder example, that gallbladder is just actually money, right? It's money that looks like a gallbladder, and it's trying to make it more interesting for me as the player. And, it also, I think it contributes to the overall narrative of the world. Obviously it does, versus just here's some coins. So I think it does make it much more interesting. But if I don't know that it's trash, I am that person who will like inventory manage the hell out of something to hang on to this gallbladder. Like, what if 12 quests from now somebody asks? And it's only really on a replay of something. Or sometimes I've actually asked John or like one of the kids who are also hardcore gamers, like, is there any use to this thing? Is there any reason I need? No, there's not. Okay. And I guess if it did say like, this is pure trash and you can sell it, then I'd be like, cool. But I also acknowledge that does affect the immersion in the narrative of the world, and that what is and is not trash, what is and is not, it's not really trash, it's just money with a different skin on it.
Yeah.
That it adds to the immersion of the world, and maybe I don't need to be told everything. I mean, it's just like, it's loot diversity, really.
Oh, I like that phrase, loot diversity.
Yeah, it's not something I was ever really that big of a fan of until I started working on World of Warcraft. Because like, it's fun to get gold, but sometimes you've just beat a big monster and it's like you got his very, very special thing that is just gold, right? But for some reason that thing feels more flavorful. Like you were saying, it anchors it more in the world and diversifies sort of what you can get. The thing with me is, I guess I'm saying the same thing you are, Brenda. I'm the kind of person who would hold on to this forever. unless it's telling me specifically not to use it or has a little icon on it saying it's trash, which is sort of my preferred way of seeing that stuff. And they do that now in WoW, at least.
Yeah, if it goes gray, I'll still be like, yeah, but what if this is tied to a quest and I need to go back and it's ridiculous. But that's me.
Two things pop into my mind about this. One is, it seems like in this topic, like in more than one other, there's like a little thread leaning over to our friend item hoarding. And the other one is, I kind of wonder how much of this behavior is from a sort of sense of, this is a bit extreme to say, lack of trust in the game to tell us what is actually essential and what isn't. I will continue to throw Legend of Zelda, I've done this before, their games under the bus, but in a game where everything is useful and having something that's particularly useful, like in multiple situations, I have used something for what I think it's used for, and then I'll walk along and find somebody who's like, I need to save my husband's life and the only thing that'll help him is gliat guts, and I'm like, So I just, I guess I need to go kill this thing now, which I guess is what the game intended, but that's sort of a weird situation that the game has inadvertently set up, that I feel like I've done something wrong somehow. Like I didn't. I did everything as that, the game was telling me I should do. I should be fusing this into weapons. I should make it into potions, etc. But then I run into a situation where it's actually needed in another setting. Hey, guess what? This thing that you thought was this nice, safe income stream, oh wait, no, you need that for upgrades. And there was more than a couple moments where I was like, man, now I need to farm that. And it pushed me in a situation towards, if everything is useful, I need to spend time getting everything. So having a sort of category of trash loot kind of felt weirdly comforting. In the Horizon series, the stuff that is this, so-called trash loot, its only use is being sold to merchants, is actually kind of sometimes very hard to get. And it's interesting because in that game, the actual money system is used to make things. So they made money and that source doubly important. And wondering about how that affects things when it's like, oh, this is useful only towards money, which is a sink for everything else. And it's like, no, suddenly we have this other pull from it that is making shit.
I was just thinking the other day in Baldur's Gate, I'm getting legitimately good loot that I can't use on my characters, and I'm still hoarding it. And I was afraid of getting rid of it. And it's funny because in those circumstances, that stuff has become trash loot. But because it's not labeled as such, I'm hanging on to hundreds of pieces of armor, right? Just unnecessarily.
I think another thing about trash loot that kind of impresses me and that I want to sort of dig into is, to what degree have you seen, do you think, something like trash loot should be a factor that controls the player's behavior? Like, how much should it be involved in making them do different things or subtly do something we as designers want them to do?
Hot take. Probably next to none.
Ooh.
Now I've got to defend that. When I think about trash loot and its primary purpose, there's a couple things that we've touched on, at least for me, and I should say for me as a system designer who loves spreadsheets, as we all do. The primary purpose to me of trash loot is, we talked about money sinks. And trash loot is a way to remove currency from the game. So instead of giving you, say, 5 gold, I'm giving you 5 gallbladders and go have fun with that. The price that gallbladders sell for, I can vary behind the scenes. So it removes currency effectively from the economy. The player kills something, player still wants a reward, right? If we don't have something that they can sell, if they don't get something for their actions, they'll be disincentivized to do that. But yet, especially in ongoing games, inflation is a real issue. And so removing currency from the economy by giving people trash loot and then having that variability over what do they get for that trash loot, that can have the effect of removing excess currency from the game and controlling the inflation. Also, if we're saying that, like, trash loot in theory if you can sell it, and even if you can say sell it in this fictitious game we're talking about for 1 gold, the absolute baseline, it does set the standard that all items have a value, and that could potentially, at least it sets a floor, right? So I feel like trash loot is much more the friend of the game designer, especially the economic game designer, than it is the player. Like my weirdo motivations with it, even though like I know the stuff that I just said, like I'm getting this gallbladder because the economy is overheated. I try not to play the game as a game designer. I try to play the game as a player.
Yeah.
So I try to just think, wow, this is really cool that I got this guy's face to put into my armor. Jesus, that was gross. I went from gallbladders to face. But I feel like the best value that trash loot has really is in balance, and it serves the game designer far more than it serves the player, while still giving the players the things that they expected. I did something, I'm getting a reward for it, and then it also encourages like further engagement, and that the player, okay, now I've got this thing, I've got to take this thing somewhere to do something with it, whether that's crafting, talking to an NPC and selling it, trading it with somebody else, who knows what it is. So it's kind of a win-win. I feel like that's the great strength of trash loot, is that it's an economic control for game designers. And then the weakness for me in that is that players might be frustrated with it.
Just building on something you were saying, Brenda, about how the trash loot actually can get you back to an NPC in a way that gold doesn't necessarily. I'm thinking of like Skyrim, where it's non-linear, but they put a lot of their quests in clumps around, say, shopkeepers.
Yeah.
So that it's like pushing you at the content, but also you have to kind of go back. And that could be an interesting way of, oh, I've got enough trash now, I want to go back, to push you towards those quests.
Yeah, in terms of controlling player behavior, I almost want to like squish the definition of trash loot into secondary or single use, let's say, currency. Something that only has a utility towards a single thing. And I could push that out, and I'm gonna, to things like engrams in Destiny 2. They're useless to you as a player unless you go back to the tower. Murmuring obols in Diablo 4, they are currency, but there's a maximum amount that you can carry, and you can only trade them or give them use in a randomized thing. Like maybe you'll get a really great item when you use them with this, shady trader, or maybe you'll get a crap item that you would actually consider to be probably actual trash loot. But pushing the boundaries of that out a little bit, to what degree is it a good thing for the player versus a tool that designers can use to control the player?
Yes. A solid yes.
Both of those.
I mean, so like if we just take money, trash loot is effectively money. So if we think about, your character has this much money, and you continuously are adding to that amount of money. That money has no story attached to it. It can be used anywhere. It can just accumulate, because it's not like you have like a finite amount of money that you can have. It's, it's just infinite, really. And so by putting stuff into trash loot requires inventory management. Going against, players, at least I speak for myself. Like, I'm sure there's some players out there who are like, don't care. I'm not that player. It's like, oh God, what have I got to do with this stuff? And so I will find a purpose for it, or try to find a purpose for it. So trash loot is effective in controlling the player's behavior, because if they've got 10 faces and that's the max that space can hold, they are incentivized to go do something with these faces. And whereas money, it's just like a single currency. That currency, it has the effect of, again, loot diversity. A single gold currency could mean that we can spend that money anywhere. But if we have different classes of trash loot, that loot might be tied to a story. Like this is obviously a horrible example that I'm making up now. It could be 10 pieces of a dragon, and you bring that back to somebody who's always hunted dragons and who might launch a quest, right? And so it has the effect of giving players rewards without adding any currency to the game, and by forcing player interaction with a variety of different things. And I think that's so much more sophisticated just in terms of world building than early RPGs that were like, have some gold.
Yeah.
Or, and I keep going back to RPGs. It's just because I'm thinking of MMOs like World of Warcraft, for instance, or old RPGs, or, some of the newer. Isn't it wild that RPGs are like the big thing right now?
I know.
At least they are in my head.
It's so wild.
It's amazing.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's so nice.
I just remember so many people saying they'd never come back. They're the hottest thing in the world. Yeah.
I also love trash loot for, I should say that if we made the definition of trash loot something like something that has a singular purpose, and that is to be turned into something else. If we took that away and switched it to, say, like, I used the example before of the Horizon series having their money double as crafting stuff.
Yeah, that's a good example.
What about games in which they have no actual singular currency? I want to be like, Fallout had bottle caps.
That's so funny. I was just going to say that. Yeah, it's a great example.
Let's say there are survival games that have no currency. It's all a barter system. Would those things actually technically be looked at, I think, by players and even designers as trash loot, or just a variation of something that works in the economy?
I don't know, I know survival games, at the core, and I know you're not talking about first-person shooters when you say survival games, but for some reason it did make me think first-person shooters, in how at some point in time as players progress, things that were great in the beginning, like, if we go back to something like Doom, the pistol, that's great when you've got nothing. But, eventually, especially in Doom 2, you get the super shotgun. And now you don't want anything else. And I should add, if there's weird background noise, it's because... Do you want me to show you? You can't see it, but I can describe it well for the camera. So what I'm trying to say, I'm aware that on my side, there's a ridiculous noise periodically. And it's because... Hang on. I swear to God, I'll describe this. It's because... This is... the nerdiest game designer thing.
We are here for it.
All right.
Oh my God.
This bag, so if the camera were on me, you'd see a bag that is full.
Yes.
And look at how far, and this is under my desk, but look at how.
Oh my God.
I can't even adequately.
Treasure. Treasure.
Wow.
It's so it's trash loot.
It is trash loot.
Oh my God. And I didn't plan that.
It's all good. I love that. That's actually fascinating because everybody I know who collects dice, who has more than just, here's my just tube of dice that I play for whenever it is I'm in a rare D&D game, is like, there's no upper limit to the dice that I want.
So you can't have enough dice.
Yeah.
At all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have a utility, but they only have an active utility. I guess I can just roll dice on my own and just have fun and admire how pretty they are, like dragon, like how shiny. They have a narrow utility, and, to a point where one set or even 3 sets, let's be generous, will do, but there's no upper bound.
This is a weird thing. Because obviously my concern was I had just kicked the stupid thing again. I'm sorry, I know you're recording this. I don't know if it's getting picked up. I would love to claim, I wish I had had the narrative arc where I could say, so here's a fascinating thing. And then I could talk about my bag of trash loot under my desk. That's not what happened. However, what I wonder is if it shows, if part of the benefit of trash loot is that it can just serve as a reward, right? It can actually stop there. So if we think about the toys, for instance, in Doom Eternal, those are, you're not going to trade those in for money. This is I did this. This is something I did and I have this thing. And to me, is this similar to this, my precious coveting? Some of the stupid things I have in this bag, if at the beginning of a lot of the talks that I give, I talk about when I was a kid, that I couldn't afford games. And so I would get games at yard sales that were missing their parts, and I'd save their parts. Like this one, this is a Ghost from a game called Ghosts. That's probably from 1970. So this bag it's part of that collection. The rest of it's in a trough at the house. It's gone way past the bowl. But, I wonder, if one of the benefits of trash loot Well, and it's not all trash loot. It would have to be a specific subsection of trash loot, is really that it can be purely reward, right? Like that's where it can actually stop. The player does not need to go spend it somewhere. It doesn't necessarily need to start a quest. And I just wonder, like you're talking about, I can never have enough dice. And dice are like seriously, at this point in time, every dice that's added to that bag is pure trash loot. Not needed. I could probably outfit all of Galway where I live with D10s with ease. But is part of it just that my precious, giving players something other than just money, that they're getting a reward?
One of the interesting things is when you held up the bag and we saw how much stuff in it, it was like, yes, a whole bag full of loot, right? And if you've got an inventory system, there's something to be said for having a whole bag full of loot, even if it's trash, right? Like, it's just like, yeah, I went out and I came back and my bag is full. Like maybe there's also something rewarding about that.
Yeah, so that's something to think about. So with trash loot, first off, I'm super in favor of trash loot because it provides a lot of tools to system designers to control inflation. I think that's great. It allows narrative designers an opportunity to both reward players to deepen the world and lore building. It also, because of inventory management, means that players have to take these 10 faces or gallbladders they've collected and go do something with them or craft something with them. And so it ends up being a gameplay activity as opposed to just another coin on top of a pile. So now if I argue why I think trash loot is trash, for me, so I already sort of opened with one, which is player frustration, right? Like, but on the one hand, it's like the completists like me who are like, well, this has to have something to do with something.
Yeah.
And I probably just need to get over it, really. But then there's also like players who could be like, this is shit. I'm not finding anything good. There is like picking up all the stuff, that is an activity in itself. But players can be frustrated with that they're not finding anything good, or they can be frustrated by, if they get a particularly bad loot drop, they could be frustrated that they could feel that there's a lack of reward, that the game is not, like, I just got all garbage. Along the same lines, the players could feel if what they're getting isn't a significant enough reward, they might feel that they should be getting something more. So therefore, this thing that they're getting might lessen their immersion, potentially in the world. If they feel that they're doing something that should be rewarded and they're not getting a reward for that makes sense, or that's not more than garbage, it could affect their immersion in the world. But I can't think of an argument that to me is strong enough. I just think like loot diversity is before you can't say like, oh great, if you find these 10 coins, great, now you get to unlock a new mission with it, which you absolutely can do with trash loot. It's just encourages so much more engagement in the world. So my personal frustration with not knowing whether I can sell or use this thing is so stupidly trivial given the economic controls that it provides.
That's a good point.
I think trash loot is like quietly an incredibly load-bearing mechanic without us really looking into it.
A great term.
Because you have people who love looting frequently, boom, right here. If I can open it, I'm not disappointed if there's not stuff in it. I just want to like dig into everything like a freaking ferret. And a player like AJ, my significant other, does not like doing that, can kind of get frustrated when I'm just digging into everything. He knows good loot comes from the kill, like taking down somebody who is worth taking down. And I know that I can count on that as, a ferret-minded player, but I also really like searching through a flea market. I like finding the gems. I like it when somebody has put something helpful or shiny in there amidst all crap, which I'm taking anyway, because I know that it means money down the line. But one of the things that you said really struck me about narrative, and I was always like, oh yeah, another thing about trash loot is they feel like the item equivalent of barks. Like, oh, he's over there, grenade and everything, that it's like, it's such a traditional thing that writers supposedly hate writing that. I love it. I like writing those quite a bit. I have an upper bound, yes, but I think that they're a cool opportunity for storytelling. And I think that a lot of times that trash loot can be too. Not just necessarily in the item description, but like, let's say you randomly decided to give this one goblin like 7 spoons. Like, why does that dude have so many spoons? It's like the kind of the equivalent of a environment artist being like, this is how I will pose the skeleton to tell a story. Environmental storytelling. But you mentioned something about like the stuff you get at different points and saving it, and how external kind of to the game itself, it's telling the story of your progress through the game just by the things you've chosen to keep. And I was like, that's so cool. And I immediately flashed to, I'll get stuff playing through Diablo 4 that I'm like, I'm not going to use this. This isn't that good. I'm putting it in my stash. Like, I can't bring myself to be like, thanks for this amazing staff, guy, like that you were going to give to your apprentice. Like, salvage a second he's out of earshot. Like, I can't bring myself to do that or even sell it. It has a special description, it shows something that I've done, I have to put that away. Like, even though it can be kind of trash, it's in terms of like it having a utility that doesn't work for me, that is functionally useless, it carries a secondary meaning. That's not something we can always count on as designers to be like, and this will be meaningful.
Yeah.
But I feel like it is an interesting element of things. Like, you don't just keep stuff that you had around, like, this was my trusty hat and I wore it for a really long time and I can't bear to part with it. Because it's like, does that count? You had that and it was useful for a while, and you've just gotten a new thing. If you got something that theoretically never had any use to you, but you keep it anyway, I feel like that still falls in that category, and it gets to sort of take the rights to say like, because it can work this way, it still carries this design weight, this theoretical value.
Yeah. And who knows what value players are going to put on things either. People develop certain favorites. When I've been playing with a character and leveling that character up, there are times I've had a certain weapon, say, or the character looks a specific way, and even though I have this thing, right, that's better than whatever it is they're using, because I've somehow associated this character with this look, I'm reluctant to change that. So I do get attached to those specific things.
I'm very familiar with but I have this look that I've set for this character. I'm wondering how much transmogrification stuff, like where you can just borrow the appearance. Theoretically, that's on its face a very good thing. Like, I can still have, run around as my druid and have this crazy feather headdress that just bounces around with me, and I really love it. It's really cool, but I can still get better headgear. Does that split the value of something to just, this is a look, this is how it looks, and this is the utility that it gives me? Like, does that actually devalue stuff? That's a totally other topic.
That's
like,
somebody else's show. Yeah, that would be
transmogs.
Yeah.
Good or bad.
It sounds like the designer has a certain amount of control over the user experience of this stuff, and that it's probably possible to just like if you introduce it to a player and set their expectations in such a way to make it either feel to the player like a good thing or a bad thing, right? Like in Diablo, at first you want everything, right? Then you've got good enough gear and you don't want that stuff anymore. But the fact that it drops the trash just enough compared to the good stuff that when the good stuff comes, I'm excited again, right? Mm-hmm. And then I get all the green stuff and now I'm excited about the next thing. I can see how if someone didn't present that to me right, it could either feel like, oh man, I'm only getting trash, or right? Yeah, there's something there in terms of our ability to control how the player feels about trash that might actually, I don't know where my point's going, but that's sort of the general direction of it.
Well, your point was going somewhere in my head anyway. It led to whatever I'm thinking. I thought it was a good point. And I think about, like, you're wondering, is there this fine line where players will be like, I'm getting nothing, I'm frustrated, you're causing me to do massive inventory management after every combat, I don't know what I'm doing with this stuff, and you're not getting enough. And when you talk about AJ, I'm very much that, I don't care what the story is, just, I got to get 10 of those, okay, great, whatever they are, I'll go get 10 of those and I'll be back. I care, the story could be X needs 10 of Y. I'm on it. I'll get you these Ys and be right back. And, I feel like a good example of that, and I'm often, I try to say when I play a game, well, there are times I play a game as a game designer to study it and why is it doing what it's doing. It's probably every game, actually, but I also try to just let go and stop trying to see the stupid spreadsheet behind the game and just sink into the game and enjoy the experience. And so sometimes while I'm playing, if we're doing like a Minecraft jam and me and the kids and John, we're all playing Minecraft, I will become so aware that it's like, okay, I'm using my diamond pick. Why? To find diamonds. Yeah, but you're using your diamond pick up as you go to find diamonds. And it's like, I'm aware, like I'm so aware as a game designer. It's like, what you're doing is stupid. You are trading time. You're using the very resource that you're trying to get the resource. This makes no sense. And it's like, but why are you doing it? Because I might get one.
Yeah.
Right? It's stupid.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But there's this fine line. There's this fine line between how much junk rock can I collect that I can still have uses for. I can build stairs with it and do all other kinds of things. But how much junk will I tolerate before I get that great item? And how long, like those, when you get that great item often feels like a trebuchet, right? Like it's just like I'm sort of grinding along and then I get something really good, not just in any game. And I'll be like, fuck yes, right?
Yeah.
And then I'm just like, I forget that I've been pissed off in inventory, like shoving stuff around in inventory. That's some, player expectation management over, what is the rate of good loot drop? Like how often do you have to drip that gold out there to make players just like forget that they've just clawed through 2 tons of rock? But isn't it, it's so funny because that, to me, in that example of I'm trying to get I'm using up the diamonds to try to get a diamond. Why? So I can use up the diamonds to try to get a diamond. Like it's such a transparent example. It's like a slot machine. I'm always hoping to get that thing and it doesn't really feel like there's any cost but time. But I do know, like, if I went too long, wherever that is, if I went too long, I would eventually become frustrated.
Yeah. It's a sort of like balancing the highs and the lows. Like it feels like out of the load-bearing mechanics there are in games, trash loot sits as this quiet one sort of behind the scenes that has, the more we've talked about it, the more I'm like, holy shit, it's in everything. It is this fulcrum on which so much of the game economy is balanced. If you add a lot of it, you have to make sure that the highs are high enough that it feels worth it, that you're not just sort of like, yay, I'm just getting mediocre stuff. But in a way, if you've just got mediocre stuff, if you tried to get the median and all that, it would be so much, I think, less exciting than having that sort of variability to it. And back when this topic first occurred to me, the using it as a fulcrum to move players around seemed like the big thing to me. Like, oh, okay, you give them enough crap, they're gonna have to go sell it. And to sell it, the only place where the merchants are is in towns, and in the towns, that's where we get to put all the quests and everything. Like, I just saw it as something to just sort of like move the player from point A to point B, but this is just like opening a puzzle box of how many things it can touch. Like, it impacts narrative both in the game and sort of in the player. Like, it definitely has a major function in the economy, not just in how much the items are worth, but the frequency with which you find the faces and such.
And gallbladders.
Yeah, gallbladders. Those beneficial gallbladders hiding behind the scenes.
When you were like, how much does it control the player? Like, I was thinking for some reason, heard like as like a player motivating thing. And the way my brain took it was like, why would players be motivated to get trash loot? Like, forget all the good shit. I would just like the trash loot in this game. So yeah. But it's interesting because you're so right. It's a lot deeper. Like, this will 100% be a topic in upcoming design lunches because it is a lot deeper. My initial hot take of, I'm frustrated by this, I'll carry it to the end of time just in case I need it. There's a lot of strength to it, but or even my secondary thing of like, look, it's a necessary evil. It's loot diversity. Well, I wouldn't call it an evil at all. It's necessary. It's important to have loot diversity, and it's important for economic controls, like essential for economic controls. Especially in live service games that keep going, you've got to have some way to control that. But yeah, there's a lot to it. So it was a great pick. I'm glad it was not.
I feel like this is crying out for a bow that is the, one person's trash is another person's treasure. Wow.
Wow.
See what you did there. Yay.
It was an awkward bow, but it's still a bow. It feels like the thematic real, like the version of actual bows that I put when I try to tie one. They always look like, well, you tried.
In our closing, Brenda, is there anything you wanted to bring up, like anything you're working on you want to tell people about or anything like that?
Well, yeah, we're working on a first-person shooter with a major publisher, and I can't say anything about it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the standard NDA, but at least I can say, and we're using Unreal 5, which is probably not a surprise. But yeah, we're working on a first-person shooter. It's such a great, we're really lucky. The core of our team, we've been working together for 8 years now. And it's just, I seriously just love the people that I work with. And we have, our team is wonderful. It's diverse. It's like really fun, actually, now that I'm the studio director, adding cool policies like menopause, or menopause itself is not a policy, but like everybody must go through menopause now. Everybody.
Feel our pain.
Yeah. But it's, but having a policy that, gives time off for that, for fertility treatments, provides grants for gender affirming clothing, or for people who have gone through substantial body change. It's really cool. So I'm liking my role. I'm gone from a nerdy game designer to the company, like I don't want to drop trash loot. Is what I'm trying to say. So anyway, yeah, I'm really happy with what we're doing. We're up to about 60 people now. So we're gusting beyond that, and very fortunate and grateful to be in the west of Ireland.
That's awesome. That is the definition of be the change you want to see, et cetera, et cetera.
It's so easy. Do you realize it's nuts? Any company leader could just go, you know what? We've got a menopause policy. It was really as easy as saying, hey, you guys, I got an idea. What do you think? To the other directors of the company, like, I like that idea. Great. Let's put it into... That's so easy.
That's so much easier than trying to bring up a design principle to other designers. They're like, I don't know.
It would be. I don't know. Tell me about how much is this, but yeah. Anyway, so I'm really liking what I'm doing. I think we have a great group of people. So I can't brag about the product that we're working on, the game that we're working on, but I can say that I'm working with the best team I've ever worked with, and we're tight, and we all, fortunately got a lot of experience on the team, and with that experience comes a wonderful level of maturity. So
that's awesome.
I'm very grateful to be where I am, and grateful to work with a group of diverse, wonderful game developers who are very nerdy.
That's awesome. Where can the people find you on interwebs and such?
On interwebs, let's see. Well, romerogames.com is the website. I'm on X, sort of, at BR.
Oh, nice.
I know, but it's a nice, very short, I guess it's kind of nerd cred. But because it's so short, it means I get tagged and everything.
Oh, no.
And then just probably through our website.
This has been so much fun. I really appreciate it. And I came in going, well, this might be a nice, short, little, chewy topic. And this is just unfolded so much. And I'm so happy.
Yeah, it's 100%. It'll be something that I'll be reading about tonight.
Thank you so much.
That was such a fun conversation.
Yeah.
And also, I feel kind of bad to the degree that I'm like, you're going to deal with me drawing elements of that. The point where she lifts up the bag. You guys actually can't see how great this bag of delights.
Of loot.
Yeah. I think it's also worth saying that you also didn't see the delight on mine and Mike's face at seeing this bag. Like, wow.
You'll just see our avatars, do the thing from The Mask. I'm writing checks for you, Annie. I'm sorry.
Thank They know what they're in for. They should by this point. But yeah, that was so great of Brenda to come and visit and did such an awesome unpacking of trash loot, which I was completely, I mean, I thought it was a pretty good topic.
If you do say so yourself.
Patting myself on the back, but I was wholly unprepared for how actually deep it went and going, well, shit, hello, things I need to think about.
Yeah, it's really neat. Yeah. Trash loot. Who knew?
Yeah. All the gallbladders, they have purpose.
The gallbladders with faces. Yeah.
Oh, God. Handsome Jack will be happy to know. Yeah, next time it's your turn, and I get to be witty and insightful about the topic that you pick. I am very excited for it.
Maybe I'll pick the one Brenda picked for us. Who
Oh,
knows?
yes. Which
It was good.
probably going to cut out because it was so good and I don't want to give people a spoiler.
Eh.
Which is even funnier if I mention it now and you're like, what the hell did she say?
That wasn't in the interview. What could it be? Who knows?
Yeah. There's many, many fantastic things that we could pick, many delightful guests in the store. It's a big industry, and we're really hype whenever anybody who is in it and awesome is on our show.
It's really nice to be able to just chat about design with people. And it's also just really nice to talk with designers not about what you're working on at the time, right? Because normally when you're chatting with other designers, it's about the thing you're making.
Yeah.
And not necessarily just about stuff, you know? Like it's
like it may be well and fun to chat about a work thing and exciting and you know, ideally so. But even then you are trying to focus in on a purpose and you have, it just uses a different part of your brain. When you're, you know, shooting the shit about something that we've all encountered in our careers in completely different ways, perhaps.
Yeah.
And have to think about it in a positive light when most of the time we're like, God damn, I hate this thing.
It's funny how often once we get past that initial trash loot
Yeah.
or unskippable cutscenes, right?
Mhm.
There's like a moment where we kind of rally and it's just like, oh, this is a deeper topic than it looked like at first. There are reasons why people use this, and some of them are really good to get a certain effect. Yeah.
They stuck around for a reason. We can all think of ways in which they've been used badly, but rethinking their utility has been a ton of fun, and I think it has been educational for me as a designer.
Same, yeah.
Hear that, kids? This is educational.
Blatantly so.
It's an educational thing where we also say bad words. Yay!
So it's not for kids and is explicitly marked that way on YouTube.
Yeah. Fuck you, Schoolhouse Rock. Just kidding. I love school. Take that. Until next time, everybody, please come back. We love you. Is it Thursday yet? Just kidding. No, that's not my catchphrase. Shit. Bye.
Bye.